If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome in. It is Money Moves without Stormy Bonatoni. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel, but not solo today. Welcoming into the program, co-host for the next 2 hours, Marc Malusis is here. Marc, we appreciate it. From places unknown, we don't need to unveil your secret location. It's all right. But you and I, of course, working together for the first time, so very excited to get your insight on what was a crazy day in sports last night.
Oh, it was insane. Well, John, thanks for having me, first and foremost, right? Live from the Batcave. Yeah, an amazing day, whether it be on the ice with the tremendous comeback by the Dallas Stars against Edmonton in the third period, scoring 5 goals, to everything that we saw at Madison Square Garden, which is something that we've never seen before in the history of the NBA, what the Indiana Pacers were able to do to my New York Knicks.
Yeah, well, we'll get to all of that as part of the show. So as we usually do to start our programs every single day, we get into what is in store on the Rundown.
Top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
Cannot be forgotten, Marc, that, of course, with everything going on, we still do have a little bit of baseball. It's a shorter slate today, but some day baseball, including, I would assume, your New York Yankees in a big game against the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, Yankees. I mean, you had the histrionics last night with Dominguez with the walk-off home run in the bottom half of the ninth inning with 2 out, and he's got 22 RBIs on the season, hitting below 250 on the year. But the Martian, as Yankee fans like to talk about, making his impact a little bit last night, were able to withstand what I thought was a quality start from Jacob deGrom for the Texas Rangers. And today you get an old friend, a former Yankee native, Aldi on the mound for Texas. It's a 12:35 first pitch, and Mr. Hit and Miss, Carlos Rodon, going for the Yankees. When he's on, he's really, really good, John, as you know. When he's off, or he doesn't get a called strike 3 that he thinks he should get, or somebody makes a defensive error behind him, in between the years, Rodon has a tendency to melt down. So, the Yankees have played quality baseball. Not a great American League, John, as you know, more than anything else. The American League East, not overly strong. The Yankees have, withstood the loss of Juan Soto in the offseason. Bellinger, Goldschmidt, they've done their job, and they've also dealt with injuries with Heel and Cole. When you look at Max Fried's been great. Rodon's been pretty good this season. I got to give him credit, even though I'm not the biggest Carlos Rodon fan.
Yeah, and we'll get to more of those. We do have a bunch of games that have some really good implications. It's an entertaining series getting started for the weekend, including in the American League West. Also on the program today, NFC East, a little bit of a look at that, as they, of course, will be the focus of Hard Knocks during this season. So it's going to be fun to look at the intricacies of the defending champs, as well as some fascinating teams in the Washington Commanders. I would say the New York Giants as well. We'll actually talk about them multiple times here today. And, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. But last, and certainly not least, as we open up our show, the Pacers finding a way out at the Garden last night in a ridiculous affair, a 138-135 final in overtime. Marc, hard not to start here. Tyrese Halliburton with the jumper at the buzzer, toe on the line. Of course, smacking of Reggie Miller with the choke symbol at the end of regulation. So just general thoughts on what many are panning, and I would say it's hard to argue with, one of the better postseason games I think we've all seen, especially in recent memory.
Yeah, first, JVT, I think these playoffs, for the most part in the NBA, and Adam Silver's got to be smiling. I think they've been really good, right? Yep. Where you've gotten some of these dramatic finishes where no game is really kind of buttoned up and done. And we've seen Indiana do it. We saw them do it against Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. We saw them do it, obviously, a number of times against the Cleveland Cavaliers, outscoring them 8-zip with 48 seconds to go. That game 2 where the Cavaliers collapsed and they couldn't inbound the basketball, missing free throws. I'm stunned. I mean, what we saw last night, I agree with you. It was probably one of the better basketball games and playoff basketball games I've seen quite some time. But, it just shows you a game is never over. I thought it was. I got to be honest with you. Even though Indiana has had these amazing comebacks, I didn't think the Knicks at home, with the rest that they had, with the way that they played, the fact that their win percentage, it was up to 99.7% at one point in time. You had Naismith going out there scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter, hitting 6 threes. You get the Halliburton heroics at the end, bouncing off the heel of the rim, straight up in the air, and then through the basket. The Knicks score the first 4 points of overtime and still lose. Like, it was just one of those crazy NBA playoff games. It goes hand in hand with, everything that we've seen historically speaking with the Knicks and the Pacers. If you date yourself back to the 90s, the LJ 4-point play, the missed finger roll by Patrick, 8 points in 9 seconds by Reggie Miller, the 25 points in fourth quarter by Reggie Miller. I mean, all those things, what we saw last night, but still, that's Reggie Miller. Naismith to go out there and have 6 threes in the fourth quarter, and he is a really good outside shooter, was just remarkable.
It was astounding to watch it happen last night. So let's hear from Tyrese Halliburton. You illustrated the final sequence well. They're inbounding with about 7 seconds left to go. He's bringing the ball up court. It eventually ends with a game-tying shot with his foot on the line. Here was Halliburton after the game describing the final sequence.
Did you think it was a 3 in the moment?
Yeah, for sure. But quickly in my celebration, somebody said it was a 2. And, then my focus just became winning it. How we could, win the game. And I thought we did a great job of sticking with it in overtime, just making big play after big play. Obviously, Aaron's heroics aren't, I hope they're talked about it. They can't be talked about enough. He was amazing down the stretch. We had a big putback dunk. We had a lot of different guys contribute, make plays. And, I was really proud of our group.
So, Marc, you're alluding to it a couple of times, and you hear some of the moments that go into a win like this. So I put together a list of ridiculous Pacers stats for us because I'm amazed by this and what we have done and what we have seen so far, because it's not just this game, right? Like, this game is incredible, but this Pacers run is a run of improbabilities that have gone in their direction, and they deserve it. So here's some stats for a couple of folks here, including this game in the postseason run. Since 1996, 1997, teams that have trailed by 7 or more points in the final 50 seconds of the fourth quarter or overtime in the playoffs are 4 and 1,702. The Pacers have 3 of those wins, all in this postseason. Before last night, teams leading by 9 or more with 1 minute left were 1,414-0, had never lost in NBA playoff games. The Pacers got the first win there. Teams up 14 or more in the final 2 minutes in 50 seconds of a playoff fourth quarter or overtime in the play-by-play era are 977-1. Pacers last night were the single win. How about this? The Pacers scored 23 points in the final 3 minutes and 14 seconds of regulation. That is the most in the final 3 minutes and 14 of regulation of a playoff game in the play-by-play era since 1997. And the Pacers, the only team in the last 20 years to win a road playoff game despite trailing by 14 or more points with less than 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. How about the Pacers being 40-1 on the in-game money line, and then the Pacers winning 3 games in this postseason in which their win probability was 4.1% or less, and then the last one there, Aaron Naismith hitting 6 of his 8.3-point makes, as you mentioned, but in the final 4:55 of regulation. I don't know what to do with this. Marc, this is our first show together. I'm very big on numbers and statistics and tracking those and using those. Everything, not everything, but so much of what the Pacers have done in this run flies in the face of probability, and here they are up 1-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I just don't know how to compartmentalize this in my brain at all.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone can, because it was just such an anomaly, but I think the Knicks got a little bit of a dose of their own medicine, when they came back from 20 points down first 2 games against the Boston Celtics, right? And now this is a little bit more improbable, right? But the Celtics had leads in the first 3 games, led each and every one of those games by 20 or more points, led game 4 by 14 points. The Knicks were 3-1, had a 3-1 lead coming out of the first 4 games of that series. And you say, how does that exactly make sense? But we've seen this with Indiana. Like when they get down and their pace of play, maximizing possessions, they don't blink. They really don't. And JVT, Carlisle does an amazing job, number one. And we've seen NBA head coaches do this time and time again where they're wasting their challenges in the first half, right? Hold on to those challenges. A game is not going to be decided whether or not you lose a possession in the first quarter or the second quarter. He had those challenges when he needed to use them late in the game, and that also affected the game. You give them credit. Neesmith going out there making the shots that he did. Halliburton taking advantage of situations. Towns going 1 or 2 from the free throw line. OG Anunoby going 1 or 2 from the free throw line. Continuing to make shots and instilling pressure. And what you saw toward the tail end of that game was, I think you saw a fatigued Knicks team mentally and physically. They were not responsible defensively. They did not pinpoint the guy that was, as Kevin Harlan talked about on the TNT broadcast, which was a great call. Neesmith's a flamethrower right now. They didn't target him. Go to anybody else but him, especially when he's made 4 threes. Don't allow him to take that 5th three and that 6th three, and continue to remain hot because he got in an unbelievable zone. I can't explain it, JVT. I really can't. Like, I was watching it in New York City last night. I wasn't at the Garden. I was in stunned disbelief walking back to my car about 11:30 Eastern time last night that the Knicks actually lost that game.
I was also in stunned disbelief walking back from a local watering hole as well. I did not accost anybody like New Yorkers tend to do on the streets, so I was not in that headspace. But I did watch. There was a very hardcore Knicks fan at the bar I was at yesterday. Absolutely beside himself. He was hooting and hollering. They're up by 17, and he left in a very quiet and very somber fashion to the point where I felt very bad, and I kind of tapped him on the shoulder. I was like, dude, don't worry. Like, you still got 6 games left potentially. And he just looked at me. He's like, I can't believe it, and just walked out. So, by the way, we should not bury the lead either, Mark. Buried in overtime was a very key goaltending call that was missed, too. That, NBA officiating does need to be better, but holy smokes, what a game. Coming up a little bit later, we're going to hear again from these guys that just played this, including Aaron Neesmith. Some pretty key moments for Jalen Brunson down the stretch of that game. I thought he was great throughout most of it, but there were some key moments at the end of that game that I think we deserve a little bit more scrutiny for Brunson there. Let's take our break here. When we come back, let's start to take a look at what we're going to have today. The Western Conference Finals, of course, Game 2. We'll see if the Minnesota Timberwolves can bounce back from what they did. And a look at the Eastern Conference Finals in the NHL. Can my Hurricanes get back on track? We'll find out when we return here on Money Moves.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back in. No Stormy Bonatoni. She is across the pond checking out Italy, I would assume. I was thinking about this yesterday, and Marc Malusis is with us as well. I believe it's a 10 to 11-hour flight, Ortega. Was that it? And she left Marc at 1 o'clock, and I was sitting there watching the Knicks game last night. And the game ended, and it was 8:30, and I was on my way home, and I was like, holy bleep, she's still on the plane. Like, that sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I went, me and my sisters a long time ago, about 15 years ago, dating myself, we went over to Italy, and we did one of those tours, right? That you like one of those bus tours. You visited like 10, 11 Italian cities and stuff like that. And I remember the flight, and we left at Newark airport. And it was like a 2 o'clock in the afternoon flight. And on the East Coast, it's like 8-9 hours. It's a long flight. And I remember one of the flight attendants going to my older sister, Kim, and he's like, it was dinner time. And he's like, what would you like, the meat or the fish? And my sister was like, neither. He's like, that's the best choice.
Yeah, that's the other part. Yeah, don't get started on the food either. Don't get started.
But then when you land in Italy, the food's as good as it gets, JVT. It really is. It's amazing.
That's very true. All right, so let's head to your neck of the woods here as we look ahead to the day baseball about to begin. We're about like 20 minutes away from first pitch between Yankees and Rangers. You've mentioned a couple of points here for New York. I like the comp here, the nickname for Rodon, where he is. If he's on, he's on, and if he's off, he's really off. Good thing for him is he's taken on a Rangers lineup that has been pretty anemic, but we're starting to see Eovaldi and the Rangers get a little support in the market. We saw this as high as 162 in favor of the Yankees. Now we're down to about $1.55. Sunspots as low as minus 145 in favor of them. Look, I think this is really all about Eovaldi. The guy's been untouchable. He's been absolutely brilliant. Great swing and miss stuff. Dominant strikeout. And, by the way, he's improved his command mark, which has been very impressive. Would assume, again, another low-scoring affair between these two. Market would agree, too. We saw this open 7.5. Now we're down to 7. Looks like a low-scoring affair with a little support for the Rangers in the Bronx today.
Yeah, I'd probably favor the Rangers. I'm not the biggest Rodon fan. I'm really not. And then you throw in the weather conditions here in New York, which is kind of chilly. You know, we're heading into the Memorial Day weekend. Doesn't feel like it. You got temperatures in the 50s. It's been raining for the last 12, 18 hours. A little bit of wind as well. You know, the Yankees are rolling out their lineup, their usual lineup. Outside of Wells being out of it, Esquera, the backup catcher, is in, hitting 7th, 8th, 9th. Not particularly great. But you mentioned about Eovaldi. He's been really, really good this year for the Texas Rangers, JVT. You know, I'm not the biggest Rodon fan. I would lean more of a low-scoring affair because you mentioned about the Rangers lineup. I would not be all that surprised, though, if Texas bounces back after blowing that 3-1 lead and losing in a walk-off fashion last night on the Dominguez home run.
Yeah, I slugged that as like a very important game for Texas. I know it's early, but the fact that you had DeGrom going, that Yarbrough was getting the start, that was going to be a winnable opportunity for you here, especially with Eovaldi coming out today. So big missed opportunity for Texas. And as you mentioned, see if we can bounce back. And back-to-back big series for Texas. You got a 4-game set with Houston over the weekend. Now you had this one here against the Yankees. So pretty tough stretch for a Rangers team in the mix of an AL West that all of a sudden looks pretty competitive with the Angels now having won 6 straight. I don't know if you know this. I'm an Angels guy. So we'll get to the Angels a little bit later. All right, so let's talk about the games tonight then. Playoff action resumes. Western Conference Finals. Marc, I'd love your thoughts on just generally where were you on this series coming into it, and how much did you change after Minnesota took it on the chin in Game 1 on Tuesday? Numbers right now for Game 2 currently sit at 7.5 with a total ranging from 216.5 all the way up to 218 depending on where you shop.
You know, I just like everyone else. I liked Oklahoma City going into it. I mean, they were a 3.5 to 1 favorite. I mean, there are guys on Minnesota I like. You know, who doesn't love Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards? I have a particular fondness for Julius Randle for his time here in New York with the Knicks and DiVincenzo last year and what he was able to do. The Thunder's defense is just remarkable. I mean, it just is. The fact that they were able to flip the script in the second half of that game the other night in Game 1, outscore Minnesota 70-40, and I thought in that third quarter, midway point of that third quarter, I think Conley hit a 3, which gave Minnesota a 4-point lead. I thought that was a very winnable game for the Minnesota Timberwolves, especially with Oklahoma City coming off the 7-game series against the Denver Nuggets, and then all of a sudden the turnovers, which I think is a big issue when you're looking at the Timberwolves. I think they're really talented, really well coached. The problem is they don't take care of the basketball. And when you don't take care of the basketball against a team that's really great in transition with Oklahoma City, that is awesome defensively, that is their hallmark, that has a guard in SGA that can go out there and hunt fouls and get to the free throw line. And I know everyone's pulling their hair out and saying, some of them are ticky-tack fouls and this and that, but give him credit. He creates contact. He plays the game, just like Jalen Brunson plays the game with the New York Knicks. So I'm not going to fault him for that. I like the Thunder. I do think Minnesota, if they're going to make this a series, is going to have to respond tonight. And the questions I have with the Thunder at times is, and you saw it in the Denver series, they have a tendency to play around with their food a little bit. Maybe it's an experience. Maybe it's a little bit of the youth of their team. I think they're the more talented team, obviously the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. But I would not be all that surprised. I would lean toward Minnesota and the points tonight. And taking them to bounce back and play a significantly better game. I think Anthony Edwards, he talked about the fact after the game the other night only took 13 shots. He was like, I need to be more aggressive offensively. I don't think there's any question about it. If you like the T-Wolves in this series, Edwards has got to go out there and play like Michael Jordan. I mean, he really does. So I think the T-Wolves bounce back tonight, play well, keep the game close within the number. But I think Oklahoma City is going to win the series.
Yeah, I would agree with all points. To me, when it comes to Anthony Edwards, 1 shot in the restricted area for him in Game 1. That's just unacceptable. You've got to be able to get into the paint and be a little bit more aggressive. It's what this team kind of did in Game 1 of the series against Golden State. So I'm kind of a stubborn person, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Stormy and I talked about this the other day, where when you get playoff series like this, if you think something and if you kind of stick to your guns, it can go one of two ways, right? You can come out on top and feel great about it, or you just constantly get your face kicked in. And I'm ready to kind of do it again. I'm ready to take a blow to the face one more time here in this game. Minnesota specifically on the side, had them in the first game, and I'm going to come back here again with them here today. I think, Mark, the other thing that's going to be very interesting is the total. While we have been speaking right now in the last couple of minutes, total was as high as 218, 217.5. Circa here in the last couple of minutes has gone from 218 to 216.5. We've seen Superbook go from 217.5 down to 217 while we've been speaking. Market opened 214 and got bet up again. If you remember, Game 1 closed at 219. So there does seem to be some stubbornness in the market in terms of, no, we're going to bet this game over again. But it does seem that about 218 seems to be the point of resistance. And when I speak about stubbornness, I think that this is a play again. If you can get the best number, we'll see if this starts to creep down a little bit more. But I think over would be the play one more time. And I keep going back to this. Timberwolves were 11 of 39 on open three-point attempts. That should be better. They're good three-point shooters coming off of the bench, like Dante DiVincenzo, Conley, and others, shot an abysmal percentage. That should, of course, revert to the mean. Water should find its level. I think Minnesota's going to be pretty live to stay inside of this number. I think part of that's going to be the shooting regression, and I think that means this game potentially goes over the total.
But it's interesting when you look at the 3-point shooting, and you've seen teams go cold, right? You saw Minnesota in game number 1. You saw the Celtics in the series at times, especially games 1 and 2 against the New York Knicks, where they're 25 for 100 from behind the arc. And I get the analytics and looking at open threes. The question is, are you catching the ball? Are you in rhythm? Where are you in terms of, are you completely wide open? What's the definition of open? I agree. The T-Wolves, there were shots that they should have made game 1 that they missed. And Randall was the only guy offensively that really came to play, especially in that first half. And then they got their doors blown off in half number 2. I'm with you. I'm ready. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? If I'm watching this game in the fourth quarter and the Thunder are up by 18 and they've made this a laugher once again, I'll be dead wrong. I think it's a Minnesota team, experience going to the Western Conference Finals. Some of the names have changed, obviously, with Randall and DiVincenzo. However, I think some of those threes will fall tonight. I don't think Oklahoma City is going to have as good of a game defensively this evening. I think the game's a lot closer. And you look at the way these two teams played over the course of the regular season together, they were really, really well-contested games. I think you're going to get that tonight.
Yeah, and the other thing at stake here is just this plain old zigzag theory, as we have discussed on the show many times. Straight-up losers in this postseason, 35-18-1. You're hitting 66% if you're just betting straight-up losers the next game. So maybe it's just that simple. Like, maybe I'm an idiot and I'm just trying too hard, because right now you're hitting 66% if you're just blindly playing these straight-up losers. It's something I'm trying to go against, and I have just been getting absolutely destroyed.
I love the zigzag theory, though, as well, because oftentimes people are like, look at me and they ask me, what do you like early on in playoffs? I want to see what transpires in game 1, and then see if, and make the argument, see exactly where the line is in game number 2. I'm sure, we'll hit upon it a little bit more tomorrow with game 2 of Madison Square Garden, but the Knicks are sitting there as a 5.5-point favorite going into game 2 as it stands right now. They were a 4.5-point favorite going into game 1, coming off that kind of a loss. It's going to be interesting to see how much burn they get, or how much play they get looking to bounce back in a game that they dominated for better part of 3.5 quarters.
Yep, you got to be smarter, and that's why I go to vsin.com, because I want to get smarter. I check out all the great articles we have up on the website right now. Greg Peterson's Major League Baseball picks are up there. Zach Cohen, your guy, has his NBA best bets as well. A Coca-Cola 600 preview, too. And coming up later today, Jonathan Davis has his NHL best bets, and Daniel Karpuck with his NBA props. So make sure you check those out. When we come back, Josh Inglis is going to join us from Covers, get his thoughts on the NHL postseason matchup tonight in the Eastern Conference.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into Money Moves. JVT, Marc Malusis here with you. Filling in, of course, Marc is for Stormy Buonantony on vacation out in Italy. I believe off the plane, but who knows? Those flights are very, very long. All right, we talked a lot about some hardwood, so let's get into what we saw last night on the ice and what we will see later tonight. Josh Inglis is with us, covers.com, betting analyst there, cover everything for the NHL. And Josh, I was just making the comment to Marc, lost in the madness. Right, everybody is, not everybody, a lot of people locked in on Knicks, Pacers, and the anarchy that is happening there. I'm also at a bar watching the Stars come storming back with 5 goals in the third period against the Edmonton Oilers. So I would ask this, general thoughts on what happened in the third period, and expanding on that, do the Oilers have a power play issue, or was that some variance that just happened to hit in one really big period for Dallas?
Pretty small sample size in terms of where that was, but the power play on the other side is exactly what erased that 3-1 deficit. Yep. Power play, second unit, goal. Power play, second unit, tied. Power play, first unit from Dallas. Literally erased that in 6 minutes. So it just shows you just how important it is to capitalize on those mistakes. I'm a Leafs fan. I watch my power play do absolutely nothing, especially early in the series when you get power play opportunities. We saw an awful call in Game 1, Florida and Carolina with the Aho penalty, and you saw Florida capitalize on it. Good teams will do that, and they find to get themselves out of a hole. What you worry about now is Stuart Skinner going to get his head on straight. It wasn't a lot of his fault, but we've seen this. He has the widest range of outcomes as any goalie. He can be terrible. He can go back-to-back shutouts, as we saw. So wondering which Stuart Skinner bounces back from this game, because we saw Leon Draisaitl talk about maybe it was more maturity that cost them that game. You want to win on the road, but I think Edmonton showed in the first 40 minutes of that game, if they keep things 5-on-5, they can kind of dominate Dallas, which I didn't really expect. Kind of a lucky win. I don't want to say lucky, but let's say improbable win for Dallas heading into that third frame, down 3-1, got the power play, and then got another one, and then got another one. So Edmonton's got to control their sticks. That's where the penalties came from. Going to be a big game, too. But I think even Edmonton, if they do go down 2-0 to a good Dallas team, can still win 2 games and turn this into a best-of-3.
When you look at it, though, would you feel good about Edmonton? You mentioned even if they fell behind 2-0, but how do you feel about the Oilers going into Game 2 after what you saw for the first 2 periods and not so much what you saw in the third?
They lost the game in 6 minutes. It's fine. They played a dominating 40 minutes early, and they just have to tie it together. It shows you how important 60 minutes is, and when you have leadership in that room with guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, who they only want to win, that will reverberate throughout the locker room. You're going to see a full 60 minutes. It's going to be a battle. And just kind of hope they don't end on that bad variance of getting poor stick penalties, going to the box, and then Dallas going 3 for 3 on the power play, which is something that usually won't happen. And on the other side, the Edmonton power play is obviously one of the best units in hockey. It will find its way as well.
Right now, Game 2 for that series, Dallas $1.24, $1.25, upwards of -130 favorite, +114, highest price on the market there for Edmonton. Would you expect, does the market like to play these zigzags? Like we've talked a lot about it in basketball, where the straight-up loser has done well. I would assume that maybe we're going to see some Oilers action by the time we get the puck drop tomorrow.
Yeah, I like the term you used as it in the zigzags.
Yeah.
But we're talking about 5 to 10 points max, kind of where it is. We're seeing it in the Carolina game. I think Carolina around this time on Tuesday was -125. They're out to -130. So I think there is maybe a 5 to max 10 point swing where it's, okay, Carolina is one of the best home teams in hockey ever. They're probably not going to lose 2 games in a row, so that will be priced in.
All right, let's look ahead to Game 2 between Carolina and Florida. The Florida Panthers were dominant in Game number 1 against Carolina. You look at Bobrovsky, and net was very, very good for the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champs. Carolina back at home for Game 2, down 1-0. They're a -130 favorite. What do you like going into Game 2?
I don't understand how this under got smashed from the opening to today. What you saw in Game 1 was what you see from Florida. You're going to see early scoring in series before things tighten up. And I watched Florida absolutely dominate the ozone possession time versus Toronto. Toronto had nothing going. Carolina, at least in Game 1, They got bobbed, but they had a lot of chances. Yeah, there were a lot of maybe low-danger chances from the outside, but they did get some stuff to the net. I do like the chance of Carolina getting some goals on board, especially at home, because the Svechnikov, Aho, Jarvis line has to get something done at home before they go to Florida and not get last change and get the tougher matchups versus a defense that, I mean, there's no weakness on this Florida roster up and down. I hate their guts, but somehow I finished the series with them, and I think I love everything about them. Their fourth line is scoring every game. You can't stop this team. But Carolina does have some chances as long as Bob just doesn't turn into Conn Smythe Bob. They already met him They met him in the other Eastern Conference final when they got swept. But I think the biggest thing here is, can Carolina wrap their head around losing? I know it's not the entire roster here. Losing 13 straight Eastern Conference finals, 9 straight Eastern Conference finals games with Rod Brind'Amour behind the bench. You're starting to see some demons creep up. And the one thing that was holding this team together, and Freddie Anderson lets in the softest, weakest, short side backhand goal to open up game one, and the floodgates start. So all of a sudden, I know lots of people out there thinking, can I find a market on maybe over 1.5 goalies started for this series for Carolina? And it's not something that Hurricanes fans want. I was on Rally Radio yesterday talking about it. And they're like, they were so angry at me about it. They weren't angry, but they're like, why would you say that about Freddie Anderson? Because Freddie Anderson had a sub-900 save percentage on the year. He gets injured a lot, and there's a reason why Pyotr Kochetkov has had a lot of starts in his last couple of years with this organization. I think if Freddie puts up another stinker today, Kochetkov could certainly finish this game.
Total-wise, 5.5 under -125, so it sounds like we're going over here for the game.
Over. I think it was more correct where they had it at -105 at the opening. We've seen in the playoffs so far that almost everything has to go right for these 5.5 unders to go. Just if you get to 3-1, if you're comfortable, and 3-0 going into one side, going into that third period, and that 3-1 goal comes, you're almost expecting for sure that over is going to hit. I was on both teams not to score 2 goals, which I thought was great until it wasn't. And even when Carolina was on that power play, meaningless power play at the end of the game, you saw it. You saw the goal come. You saw the Jackson Blake goal, although he did get another elbow to the head from Aaron Ekblad, which is becoming an issue. But Florida can score late, and they don't. It's funny because they don't necessarily sit there and control the ozone and fire a ton of shots on net. They just capitalize on your mistakes. They're one of the best spaced gap teams in all of hockey and know how to counter off you once you open your game up and open your weaknesses up.
Josh, any player props you like tonight?
Evan Rodriguez on this top line is +150, +145 for a point. Get aggressive, +250 for an assist. He's priced as a shooter, priced as a goal scorer, but when he's on this top line, his role is a little different. He's playing with Barkov, he's playing with Reinhart. Both guys can finish, but this is a guy who has 5 assists in his last 4 games. He's been in and out of the lineup, obviously, with the injury, but he had 2 assists in game 3 when he came up to that top line. He had 2 assists in the last game. His 2 assists is +1450. I think Florida can put up over 4.5 goals today just because of Freddie Anderson in this situation. I like how the top line goes, but you can touch any line in Florida right now, and you're not going to lose. That line, the Tkachuk line, the Listerinen line is the best line in hockey right now, and even the fourth line with Greer and Hodovic nailed that one. I mean, 8 minutes, this line scores every game. It's an absolute unit, this team is.
Josh Inglis with us again, covers.com at @covers_Josh. Before we get you out of here, Aho, what do you expect for him today?
I love game script shooting. Florida up, that top line that gets last change. He had 9 shot attempts in the last game. He got 7 on net. His splits are really funny in hockey because especially top line guys, when you're at home, you get to get the last change. So you get to match up versus whatever defense the visiting team has on the ice. So, I mean, Brind'Amour's giving him favorable matchups. He's averaging over this total every game at home so far. On the road, it's a different story where he's averaging under 2 shots a game. So playing the splits game, playing that top line that looked like the best unit that they had, and they're going to get a little more play because of the game got out of hand. So they didn't play as much. I think they finished 3rd in time on ice at 5-on-5, so a little more bump in terms of TOI for them.
All right, man. And last 30 seconds, Bobrovsky over 26.5 saves also on the list for you?
Yeah, I think Carolina is just, especially at home, can get pucks on the net, whether they're in the slot, whether they're from the point. It's a team that continually gets pucks on net. And again, that's game script related. Florida up. Florida's just going to keep things out of their own end. Watch Carolina just to continue to get pucks on net. It might take a little while, but third period late, wouldn't be surprised if that one hits too.
Again, Josh Inglis at covers_Josh, covers.com, great site as well to use. Josh, thanks a lot, man. Always good to talk to you.
I appreciate it. Enjoy your Thursday, gentlemen. Take care.
Yeah, you too, and good luck. When we come back, look, we're getting closer to football season. We got Hard Knocks announced. Let's spin that into a little look ahead to the 2025 NFL season.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger. Because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Second hour of Money Moves coming up in 15 minutes. We got a lot going on in baseball, which we will get to. And, of course, more on the National Basketball Association, as Terrell Furman will be with us. Us, of course, being myself and Marc Malusis, who's with us here, filling in for Stormy Bonatoni, who is off and jet-setting around our wonderful planet. All right, so yesterday, Marc, we did get the announcement, in-season Hard Knocks. We actually got the regular Hard Knocks as well, which is going to be the Buffalo Bills. But the in-season teams will be from the NFC East, the Eagles, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. A very interesting division. It has the defending Super Bowl champs. It's got the flavor of the month in the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels, a star on the rise. And it's got a car wreck that you can't look away from in both the Cowboys and the Giants. So there is a lot there when it comes to the entertainment factor for what these four teams could be. So I thought this was a good opportunity to zoom out, kind of look at these teams, and especially where they're going to be by the time we get to December and by the time we start to see behind the scenes for these teams. So we'll start at the top. Your general thought as we head into the year for the Eagles, because the Eagles, I think, are pretty interesting. This is the case study on how you build a team. Kellen Moore is gone. Kevin Patullo is going to take over as the offensive coordinator. You do have key pieces gone. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Darius Slay, Isaiah Rodgers, all on different teams now. But this is a team that is drafted well on defense and is just, hey, next man up. Here we go. We've got new starters that we trust. By the time we get to December, I really don't think there's any question that this Eagles team will be just as formidable as it once was, but maybe you think differently.
No, I don't think differently. I didn't, and I kind of liked, I was really bullish on the Eagles going into last year, JVT, before it started after the acquisition of Saquon Barkley, even as disastrous as it ended with that playoff loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the year before, because, and they went back to work, right? Changed some things that they did behind the scenes, and we saw that Eagle team, the offensive line, obviously, is always a mainstay. And their ability to get after the quarterback, even though it was not historically great. We saw the front four, what they were able to do against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. No, I think they're going to be really good. And I think they're clearly the best team in the division, and they're better than Washington. They're better than Dallas. And obviously the Giants aren't even on the same page, nor the same book as the Philadelphia Eagles right now. So, yeah, I think the only question you have is how do you handle success? We saw how they handled failure, and it wasn't good the following year after they lost the Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs. How do they handle success? I think with the leadership on that group, with obviously Hurts at quarterback, Barkley coming back, with the ability that they have at the wide receiver position. Offensively, the line is, we know they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the National Football League. The line is always going to be rock solid. The tush push is going to be able to still be used in the NFL. It didn't get voted out by the owners. That's a positive for the Philadelphia Eagles, as Kelsey made his way to Minneapolis and was pleading along with the Eagles owner. I think Philadelphia is the deserved favorite. You look at their win total sitting at 11.5. I think it's a 12 or 13 win team. I think unless injuries happen, which you can never project or forecast, I think the Eagles are clearly the best team in the NFC East and a team that can go out there and get through the NFC and get back to a Super Bowl again.
Yeah, we generally agree with all the statements. The win total is pretty interesting. I think it's right on the mark. Remember, for our audience out there, strength of schedule-wise, if you use opponent win totals, the fourth hardest strength of schedule, the Philadelphia Eagles, that they have in front of them. Much of that has to do within their own division and the two games that they will have near the tail end of the season with the Washington Commanders. I mean, look at that stretch, just the last three games. Washington, Buffalo, and then Washington once more. A lot could be on the line in that final game of the regular season, which is a perfect jumping-off point to that team, Mark. I don't think there's any question that the most fascinating team in this division is Washington. I think the comp that I and many have made, Stormy made this the other day, they are this year's Houston Texans. For those who don't remember, last year heading into the 2024 season, Texans fresh off of a season in which their rookie quarterback was sensational. They had won a playoff game. C.J. Stroud, was co-favorites at some spots to an MVP before the season began. They were a team that was very highly rated and fell flat on their face to an extent. They still got into the postseason. They were still a very strong defensive team, but did not meet market expectations. And the way that this Washington team is being priced, win total of 9.5, division at 2-1, Super Bowl 18-1, Jaden Daniels floating around 750 to win MVP. There are some very high expectations for Washington with a decently hard schedule that I'm not entirely sure that they will meet. But where are you at with Washington and where this market is pricing them?
Yeah, I think the expectations, I would say the market's pricing them correctly because of what we witnessed a year ago and whether it's real or tangible. Like, I think Daniels is real, tangible, right? You want to compare him to Houston and say the Texans and kind of the breakout year they had with Stroud. Fair. And I like that comparison. Washington, with this offseason, though, looked at some weaknesses that they had and addressed it, right? They made the trade with Houston to go get Laramie Tunsil. They gave Jaden Daniels another weapon in making the trade with San Francisco for Deebo Samuel. Adam Peters, their general manager, clearly, obviously, looking at this as a win-now situation. Let's try and maximize Daniels, who we know can play this game at an elite level under his rookie contract. I like that aspect of it. I think it's an extremely well-coached team. See, that building and that entire organization needed to be fumigated. So what you saw last year was similar to a nature of an organization with talent, with a better head coach, with everyone pushing in the same direction, and with obviously a dynamic young quarterback. The results that you saw on the field. Daniels is not going anywhere. He's going to give you an opportunity to win each and every one of those games. I don't think what we saw last year was anything fictitious. Like, I think it's real, right? Now the question is the offensive line better enough to be able to establish the run, right? Does he get injured, right? The defense, which was an issue last year, getting after the quarterback, they suffered some losses on the defensive side of the ball in free agency. Are they going to be able to go out there and attack the quarterback? That's going to be on Quinn, and obviously that's his specialty as a former defensive coordinator designing that defense. I don't think Washington is where Philadelphia is. I really don't. But I understand when you're looking at the marketplace in an NFC East that's, has the defending Super Bowl champs, why they're getting the love that they're getting because of how everyone, JVT, fell in love with Daniels a year ago.
Yeah, Tunsil and Samuel, it's a really good point. Very good offseason moves, as well as Dietrich Wise and Jonathan Jones. And they retained so much of their coaching staff, too. So spring and summer, it seemed like it was a really good one. And this summer, a lot of people are excited for that. Much like people are excited this summer, by the way, for the all-in special here at Circa. Check this out. Just $400. You can get a 2-night stay here at Circa, something that I've taken advantage of. $100 dining credit, $100 beverage credit, your very own day bed at Stadium Swim, and $400. $400. Resorts fees, taxes all included. Limited time offer between May 26th and September 4th for those stays. So don't miss out. Lock in your all-in summer package now at circalasvegas.com. So I think the top two teams obviously have the most interest in the NFC East. There's no question about it. Two teams, win totals that project them to be winning teams, 9.5 and 11.5 respectively for the Commanders and the Eagles. The Cowboys are, I think, always an interesting case study, Mark, because I think talent-wise it is there, but you can make the argument Dallas is kind of in this black hole where they have overpaid for some of their players. The albatross of the contract of Dak Prescott, who I think is a little undervalued, but still, that weighs heavily on your roster. You did go out and get Pickens to pair up with your own top-tier wide receiver, so maybe that is going to help out CeeDee Lamb. I find myself gravitating toward betting on a positive season, or at least a more positive season for Dallas than the market expects. I look at 7.5, and I look at plus 190 to make the playoffs. I feel like this team has a better outcome in their future than what the market expects for them.
Let me ask you, how much do you factor Schottenheimer in as a head coach, being bullish on the Cowboys?
Yeah, I think that to me is where I kind of run into a little bit of a wall, right? Which is like, I don't know. I just don't know what he is, right? And I think he's brought in. I think he's brought in like we all expect to be, right? He is the puppet, and there are strings that lead back to Jerry Jones. I think that is very much the case. But he's familiar with these guys, and I think there is talent here. I just don't know how to calculate the Schottenheimer effect into what I believe this team could be.
Right. You have to work your way. It's very layered when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, right? And I think it's almost at times you see what you want to see to a certain extent. See, I don't know. It's hard for me to fall in love with Dallas. I think there's talent. Prescott's talented. Obviously, I agree with you about Pickens, pairing him up with CeeDee Lamb. They got a dynamic young tight end. The offensive line not nearly as good. The defense can't be as bad as it was a year ago. They suffered some losses, but you got Micah Parsons. I just don't know what Schottenheimer is as a head coach. I mean, that's the big issue I have when you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys. I know what he is as an offensive coordinator. But I got to be honest with you, JVT. I don't think he's a great offensive coordinator. I don't know exactly what he's going to be as a head coach.
Yep. I will say, too, I mean, I was actually kind of a fan of what they did in the draft, getting Booker from Alabama to kind of anchor the interior of that offensive line. Like, there's some things that you really like. They've done a decent job. At the beginning of the schedule does have some opportunities for them, especially that early portion of the year, if that Prescott's going to be healthy. Obviously, tore the hamstring off the bone and is starting to ramp up a little bit here. But you look at those first few games after the Eagles, Giants, Bears, Packers at home, Jets, Panthers, many of those winnable games. Wouldn't be shocked if they only have 2 losses heading into Week 7, but I think that's also the upside of what that stretch could potentially be. We're not going to leave the Giants on the cutting room floor. We do have some odds on some starting quarterbacks. There is a quarterback battle happening in New York for the Giants. I think it's a battle at least. We'll discuss the odds for that and more as we head into the second hour of Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.